We're still missing a few board members, 2 board members, but with the quorum and the fact that it's 6:30, I'm going to call the meeting to order. And I'm going to hand it over to Brendan O'Neill to just explain to everybody sort of the rules of the road.
Thank you,
about
Lynn.
muting and all that kind of stuff. Etiquette.
Yes. Yeah, so just a reminder, if you're not speaking, please mute your line. If you're not using the computer and you're using a phone, it's *6 to mute and unmute your line. Just a reminder, this meeting is being recorded and will be put up for rebroadcast at a later date at the conclusion of this meeting. Any votes tonight need to be a roll call vote to be compliant with a telephone meeting law. Is there anyone who wishes to hear verbally the attendance of the meeting currently, just to make that available? Okay, I think everyone can see everyone, so given that, I'll turn it back over to Lynn.
Well, thank you, everybody. Welcome. And the first order of business is public comment. Is there anybody who would like to speak under public comment today? Just unmute yourself, say your name, where you live, and go right ahead. Anybody? Okay, nobody's stepped up to speak under public comment, so we're going to go to the first action item on the agenda, which is approval of the Board of Education meeting minutes from April 28th, 2020. And I would entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
So moved.
Second, Tracy Lambert.
Moved by Mark Doyle, yes. Seconded by Tracy. Any discussion on the minutes? Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Brendan to do a roll call vote then.
All right. Dr. Galucci?
Aye. Aye. I'm sorry, unmuted.
Gotcha. Thank you. Dr. Gomez?
Aye.
Dr. Cabal-Nolan?
Aye.
Is Ms. Dunnick on the call yet?
I haven't seen her.
Okay. Mr. Doyle?
Aye.
Ms. Lambert?
Aye.
Ms. Ray joined us yet?
No, I don't think so.
All right. Ms. Haney?
Aye.
And Ms. Ide?
Aye. Thank you. So the motion passed, the minutes are adopted. And now we're gonna turn it over to Dr. Tracy Youngberg to share some reports with us. You have to unmute yourself.
Been doing that all day today. I said, it's good to see you all in your Hollywood Squares Brady Bunch boxes. I'm going to share my screen so we can get started on the recognition and awards. As you know from our traditional board meetings, this is the new and improved way of celebrating the amazing things that are happening with our students and staff in the district. So our first highlight is Isabel Perez, who was named the 2020 Connecticut Scholar, which is a prestigious nomination that we're extremely proud of her about. If you notice in the picture, she also is an athlete and a musician, in addition to being a scholar. So congratulations to Isabel Perez on that recognition. Although I've let the board know of our 2 scholar athletes, we're giving them formal recognition tonight. The first is Elisa Dupont. Again, as we mentioned when we celebrated them in our last meeting, they are being acknowledged for not only having exemplary performance in the classroom, but also on the field and court. So congratulations to Elisa Dupont. And I know, Tracy, you know this guy, Andrew Lambert, Tracy's youngest son, is the male scholar athlete. And we got him in a swimming pose here in the picture. And again, he is being recognized for exemplary performance both in the classroom and on the court and in the pool. So congratulations to Andrew.
Thank you.
And a proud mama stuff, right?
Yes, very.
The next recognition, we're celebrating one of our staff members, Melody Wiley, for sewing some handmade masks for the staff members here at Central Office, so we appreciate her. And we can't forget the Food Service Department and the Director of Food Services, Mr. Eric Voll. Last count, we are somewhere at the point of 68,000 meals served. Remember, this program has been open since the very first day of our school closure back on March 16th. We put up every single one of the staff members' names from the department because we're incredibly proud of the work that they have been doing from day one to keep the students, actually anyone 18 and younger, in Windham fed. So congratulations to the Food Service Department. Continuing along those same lines, we have a list of volunteers that we're celebrating for making deliveries and assisting with food prep in a variety of ways. And this is a whole list of Windham staff members. Oh, I hear some, yeah, there we go. I said I heard some feedback for a minute. But we have some teachers, we have coaches, just looking real fast, family liaisons. There's a whole lot of people on this list, but thank you very much to all of the staff members who have been contributing to making some deliveries and taking care of our community. We also want to thank the private donation of diapers. A 2-month supply of diapers went out to 3 separate families, so we're very happy about that. We're also saying thank you to Home Depot. They donated some of their little workshop kits that are normally used inside the store, and they've dropped them off so that we can hand them out to students so that they can do the work at home. And obviously this is a picture from when we were allowed to be near each other many moons ago. And we want to just bring to your attention that we have a new newsletter that's being distributed, or new information that's being shared about the Food Service Department from our registered dietitian, Alicia Feenstra. And so you can find this information on our website if you're looking for the updates on our Food Services Department. And last but not least is a recognition of all of the staff members who took part in the caravans during the week of May 4th, with a special thank you going out to Assistant Principal Joanne Haddad, who I believe is on the call with us, as well as a shout out to the first responders, the fire and police departments for putting vehicles in the parade. It was really very touching. I drove the minivan through the parade as well, so it really felt good to do it. So thank you to all the staff members who took part in that. And that is all I have for special recognitions. I don't know, let me just unshare my screen here. I don't know if you want, Ms. Ida, if you want me to go on to bring up any of the news that I shared today in the email I sent to the board, or if you want to wait on that.
Well, I think that would be good for you to share the news. You also have another item on the agenda here too to fill us in on. But before you do that, let's just take a little break. Is there anybody from the board who has any questions or comments based on the first part of the report? Other than like just wonderful to see that news. And Tracy Lambert, you must be so proud of your son. Good job, Mom.
I am very proud of my son. He turned yesterday, so rough week for me.
And I want to do a shout out to the food service staff. My daughter is one of those people who goes and volunteers preparing the meals, and she has had a great experience, and it's very well organized, and people are really just a pleasure to work with. So please convey that to the staff, that the feedback from one of the volunteers, and you don't have to name her as my daughter, but just that is that it's a great experience.
Excellent.
I mean, over time, they probably will be looking for more volunteers, I would guess.
Sure. At the rate that they're delivering, putting out meals, I can imagine they're always going to need a backup. 68,000 meals. Actually, it may be more than that. That's a ballpark figure, so it's pretty impressive.
Yeah. So Any other questions, comments from board members before we move on? And we'll have Dr. Youngberg fill us in on a bunch of other new information that came out today, in addition to number 2 under her reports. And I see Pat Risley is here with us today. Welcome. Thanks. Okay, hearing none, then I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Okay, so I wanted to bring the board up to speed today. I sent sort of a lengthy email that went through some of the things that have changed since our update was sent out on Friday. We learned yesterday afternoon about the CARES Act fund, which leaves Windham Public School ready to receive as much as $1,499,688. There's an application process we have to go through, and there's criteria about how that application has to be established and how the money is spent, which I sent to the board. So last night, because the Board of Finance was also copied in on the news, we brought it up to them as well, because they were aware that we were, potentially slated to receive this money. So we had a quick discussion with them about it. One of the things that I mentioned to them last night was that the $1,499,688 seems like a lot, but the reality is we're not exactly sure what kind of expenses COVID-19 is going to, the district is going to have to incur as a result of that. As one of the things I've been using as an example is some of the recommendations for the number of students currently that can be on a school bus together if we were to be coming back in person. That would drive our transportation costs through the roof, because right now the talk is 10 to 15 students per bus, and there's usually 50 or 55 kids per bus. So if you can imagine multiplying your bus costs by 4 or 5 times. So that's one of the things I want to sort of warn people about. I also told the Board of Finance last night that that large number really only equates to $450.62 per student. So when you think about it in that way, it doesn't seem like it's so much money, because the reality is these are funds being allocated to support our students in closing some of the gaps and supporting them both academically and from a social emotional standpoint. But I did want to let you know that it's always nice to be told that you're going to have the potential to receive money you weren't expecting. So it's good news in my book. I see a hand. Yes, Tracy.
I didn't want to interrupt you. When is the application due? When will we find out if we get the money?
That's a really good question. And the email I sent you is actually vague. It says that expedited, a quick little application is on its way, but it doesn't give a time frame. I imagine it's coming soon, but I don't know what soon means.
Okay, well, because it says we can get 1.499 whatever, but we may not get all of that either. We may get $1 million or less or something, and that could make a big difference in our budget as well.
That's a good point. Very good point.
And that is, I mean, one of the reasons that we wanted to report this to you all in a little more detail tonight is that because when it all came to light in the past 24 hours, the issue came up at the Board of Finance public hearing, and then the meeting last night. You can imagine that we're getting questions about, oh, well, if you're getting this money, can it just be cut off, subtracted from your budget request and everything will be all right. And we deferred last night on giving them an opinion on that, because we wanted to hear from the board members about how they think we should be approaching this in light of the budget discussion, and the Board of Finance could potentially make a decision about what they're going to vote on for our budget next Wednesday, the 20th. They may delay it until the 27th or the following Wednesday. But last night at the end of the meeting, they were setting themselves up to possibly make a decision about our budget next Wednesday. And so I really want the board to weigh in on this after they hear all the report from Dr. Youngberg, because I think it's really important for people in the public to understand that if we get this money, as Dr. Youngberg said, it is not just money we can use to cover our regular expenses, because it is meant for a COVID-19 response. The social emotional needs of the kids, as well as things like social distancing on school buses and all that, are all things that we need to be thinking about. I'm sorry to interject, but I should have provided a little more context. Go ahead.
That's fine. Totally agree. And I also want to just point out that this year, the budget wasn't passed, as you know, till December 3rd, and it was a 0% increase. And we have made a number of sacrifices as a school system to try to close out the year without any deficit spending. So we didn't do a lot of things this year that our kids really need us to do. So if there's ever any extra money, it's got to go back to the places that we've been shaving corners to sort of try to make ends meet, given what we were provided for a budget this year. But yes, it's good news to hear that we're getting that money, but we have to be really cautious about how it's applied. Another, right along those same lines of good news is, as a result of a conversation or a few conversations with Representative Susan Johnson, who was adamant that the numbers we were provided from the State Department of Ed were not accurate, and it turns out that she was correct about that. We reached back out to the State Department of Ed and got confirmation that we are actually slated to receive more Alliance funds than we were anticipating, and more to the tune of $912,221. I see Neil doing the, whoop, absolutely. And again, that works out to $274.10 per student if you're talking about giving this money back, in support of the kiddos. But I'm glad that Representative Johnson was, didn't give up on thinking that the numbers she voted on at the legislative level were not the numbers we were receiving. So that's also good news for us. In this, I guess the third part of the good news related to our budget is we were given a grant waiver for Title IV monies that are now allowing us to use the entire grant, which is $108,961, to apply to some of our technology expenses. And normally that grant only allows for a very small percentage to be used for technology. So we are very thankful, given that we still have a fair number of students without devices and/or without Wi-Fi access. So hearing all that, has been being done to support the students of Windham, particularly at this strange time of virtual learning, is very exciting. So I don't know if there's any questions about CARES Act or Alliance Fund or Title IV.
Now is the time for board members to ask questions about this and/or share any points of view they have about stewardship of these funds, use of these funds, as we face questions from the Board of Finance. Mark, I see you turned off your mute. Are you going to say something? Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, so the Alliance money is next year's budget.
Correct.
The CARES money is this year's or next year?
You know what? That's not clear to me, and I'm going to reach out to the state because we should be hearing about when the application's due, first of all. That hasn't been given to us yet, but it's a good question. Is it going to arrive in this fiscal year or after July 1? It wasn't clear in the directions.
Okay, and then the IT money you talked about reducing our request for next year. That's the Title IV money. Is that, again, this year or next year's money?
So that would be for that's in next year's request, given that we have additional Title IV money that we can use for technology that wasn't allowed before, and the donation from the state. I was saying that if we could make any adjustments somewhere, that is an opportunity for us to make an adjustment. That $433,000 that we had earmarked, we've taken care of some of the things that money would pay for through the Title IV grant and the donation from the state.
So that's next year's money.
Correct.
Okay.
I see that Mary Gallucci has a comment. She put that in the chat box. So Mary, go ahead.
Thank you. This is Mary. Yeah, I've attended the last two public forums of the Board of Finance. And I just want to say, first of all, when their eyes light up when they hear about this money, saying, oh, good, then you can cut it off your budget request. To me, that's a tacit admission that our budget request is an absolutely valid one. And that, for all their discussions about, well, this is too much, they are admitting that this is what we need. And they would quickly let some other fund go to our budget. But we do have to be very careful, and I want to make sure that obviously some of this money will be related to like personal protective equipment or, PPE. the social distancing, also testing that may be required when we return to face-to-face instruction. So they need to realize that the school district needs the budget that was very carefully assembled and presented to them. And I have made that point several times. I also want to say that there were comments in the public forum about, oh, you know, the town, you know, everyone is facing hardships, which of course I would never deny, and layoffs and things like that. But for them to then say, you need to cut the school budget, it's too much, they're actually advocating layoffs because that is the only way we can cut our request, as is very clear from the budget that we presented. And that we have been cut so many times and not fully funded for so many years. The Board of Finance really needs to be responsible and not make us suffer anymore. And the last thing I want to ask is, for this alliance money that seems to be a little bit in excess of what we thought we were getting, does it come to the school district? Does it go through the town? Why is it that we are so uncertain about that?
So
Thank
the
you.
Alliance, I'm sorry, Dr. Gallucci, the Alliance money goes directly to the school system. ECS money goes through the town.
Okay.
Is there anybody else on the board who would like to ask questions about this money and or make any comments? Now would be the time to speak up. It would be very helpful for Dr. Youngberg and I to hear what you have to say about this. Dr. Cabano and Katina.
I'm going to say I agree with Dr. Gallucci, with Mary, and also that we need to, like very well, I think Kristen DeGray said, who's joining us also, the town has to say, this is our school system, you know, not like those people. And yes, we will have more layoffs, and that's not acceptable. It's not acceptable. So they must understand that some of that money, although might be for next year, is dedicated to the COVID-19 issues that will be very expensive to come up with, and that we just hold the line. It's so unethical what the town has done with the school system and the teachers. So that's why I wanted to say thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who on the board who would like to speak to this? Mark, did you have your hand up again?
Yes, I did.
Go ahead.
I don't disagree about the budget, but I'm concerned that if we don't put forth a good faith effort, that if we're going to say now we can save 300,000+ in the IT money, if we don't offer that up as a token to the Board of Finance, it's a disservice. We can't continue to ask for the 9% increase plus try and reap the benefits of some of this extra money we're getting. The Board of Finance clearly knows we're getting the money, and they're clearly going to be looking for it. So I think if we don't at least put forth a good faith effort to give them some of that back, they're just going to take it back. I think it's unrealistic to expect us that they're going to give us 9+ and then let's enjoy the benefits of this extra $1 million in alliance money and this extra $300,000 in IT money. We have to be realistic with the board and the taxpayers.
I would just say that I think we need to be very firm with them, Mark, about being clear that the CARES Act money is not just like fun money, that it is something that is going to have to be dedicated for the most part to things related to making people whole in the wake of COVID-19. But I do agree with you to some extent on the technology money. I mean, we did have, what was it, $433,000 request in there. I'm just going to put this out to the board, just see what you think. Yep. There was a $433,000 request for tech stuff in that 9.72% request that we made. And if we are getting 108,000 for technology, that takes some money off of the $433K request. Plus, we're getting 600, is it 660 laptops from the state?
Correct.
Right,
633.
right. So I think in the, I don't have your email in front of me right now, but I think in the email you sent out to this afternoon, you do put forward after consultation with Brendan O'Neill, sort of what the dollar amount that we would still need in our budget to continue to move forward on our tech responsibilities.
Right, and
Which was-
knowing, and that is
Question?
correct. And I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Jaime, let her answer and then I'll
Tracy
get to you,
go. I'll go
Jaime.
after that.
Yeah, okay, and then Tracy, do you want to say something? Tracy Lambert? Yes,
Yes,
okay.
please.
And then Paula, do you want to say something?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, please.
Okay, so it'll be Jaime, Tracy, and Paula after Tracy Youngberg answers us.
I just wanted to say that part of the way the CARES Act money is established or set up, it can also be used for technology purchases if they relate to being able to, support the students in our current environment, and who knows how long it's going to last. But that's one of the parameters for spending. So there's another potential option to go that route should we need other things for technology. And just so you know, the $433,000 does not represent everything in the budget that Brendan and department initially asked for. You can see him shaking his head. But it's where we landed in terms of being able to roll it out for 2021. So I know he's panicked that I'm saying we can reduce because he knows he didn't get the full amount that he asked for. But I do feel comfortable that we have other opportunities now that we didn't have before to pay for things.
Okay, I do see there's also a question from Mary Gallucci in the chat box. So we'll go Jaime, Tracy, Paula, Mary. Okay, Jaime.
Okay, Tracy Younger, do we know what percentage, I mean, these additional monies that we're getting, what is the percentage regarding to the total amount, the total budget that we had? Is it a 0.1%? Is it a 2%? Is it a 3%?
Neil Weathers,
how much, the
you
additional
want to do your
money?
quick math? I didn't look at the CARES Act money, but I looked at the other one and came up with a percentage. But I know Neil is the math guy. Neil or Rita, one of them can figure out percentages very quickly. We're looking for Neil, the total amount, the percentage, or I could do it too on the calculator, but.
Because the reason is because we can tell the Board of Finance that, that we have additional monies that are equivalent to a given percentage of whatever we have budgeted.
Yeah, so when I did the recommendation about reducing the technology request along with the Alliance grant monies, that comes out to $1,042,121, which is 2.1 or so %.
Yeah.
So in
So
that
those two-
case, let me just add something. So it's 2.1%. So then we will only be asking the town for 7.7%.
Well, that's it.
what
I
I'm
mean,
reading?
that is, you're putting that on the table, Jaime, that we'd have to decide whether that's what we would
Right.
want to do.
Yeah, okay, but that would be equivalence. I'm looking for equivalence of
Right.
Yeah.
additional money to percent of
Correct.
a budget that we request.
I didn't
that's
look at
okay.
the CARES Act money because, again, I caution everyone that we don't actually know what those expenses are going to be. And if we go ahead and figure that into trying to close some of our staffing gaps, we're going to end up potentially being upside down and the town will be bailing us out anyway. So I'm trying to be, as
Yeah,
fiscally
I do
responsible.
understand, okay? I
Right.
do understand. I just
Yeah.
wanted to know what percentage were, those additional. money.
Okay,
If
thank
they were.
you.
Thank you.
Tracy Lambert.
A couple things. Are the computers that we're getting from the state Chromebooks, or is it a whole new platform that we have to somehow integrate into our IT department?
Brendan, you want to answer that? I know you know them left and right.
Absolutely. So that is a very good point because they are not Chromebooks. They are Windows computers. So there will be additional overhead in management of those because we've kind of actually moved away from Windows to Chromebooks because it's easier and less expensive to manage. This is going to bring on a more expensive platform to manage in the long run.
Okay, so that's one concern financially. We can get the Chromebooks, and every time we get a grant, there's some kind of strings or hoops or whatever that we have to make sure we can account for. So we'll have to bring on somebody else to manage this, or it will take more of Brendan's time. And as we know from previous experience, you know, he could get a job somewhere else making a lot more money, and we're grateful to him for staying. So let's just keep that in mind right there, that he may need additional staff or something like that to be able to accommodate 2 different platforms now. And the other thing is that if we tell the Board of Finance that we're getting this, well, we've told them we're not hiding it, $1.6 million or 1.5 or whatever it was, and it doesn't come through, or only a small portion of that comes through, then we're changing ourselves again. And there are going to be things that nobody's thought of that are going to come back when we finally get these students back into the classroom, if and when that happens at some point in the future. There's going to be more sanitary precautions having to be made. I'm sure we're going to have to supply masks for people who don't have masks, sanitizer, but it's going to have to be monitored, and all of these other things that are going to add expenses to our already very tight operating budget. I had no problem, and I said this to the Board of Finance last night, making the motion for the 9.7% increase, because I know how much it's needed after years of less than what we need. So I think we need to be really careful about saying we take this money off the top, because 1, it's not guaranteed, and 2, there are going to be hoops that are going to come with it and strings attached, and 3, we don't know what the future brings. I work at Willard's on Valley Street, and nobody can get plexiglass or hand sanitizer right now. And stores can't open unless they can put plexiglass barriers between themselves and their customers or clients. So it's like a catch-22. We don't know what we're going to have to do, what the town may say, or the state may say, or the federal government may say about bringing students back into the classroom, and what kind of precautions we're going to have to put in place. And if we have to go out and buy 4 tons of plexiglass, that could eat up the entire budget right there. So I think it's something that we really need to be, I'm just using that as an example, but be wary of before we say we can take 2% off the top and give it back to the town. I don't want to charge the town more than we have to, but I want to be prepared for whatever's coming.
Very good points. Very good points. I see that Katina has her hand up, so you'll go after Mary, Katina. So Paula?
The only point I was going to make, and I think Tracy clarified it quite well, is that that care money, we have to be very sure that we're doing exactly what Dr. Youngberg did, but let the Board of Finance know exactly how that money needs to be spent. And I don't think that's something that they can even consider cutting. I mean, again, after going through what we're going through in our facility, I know what things can happen, how easily things can happen, and how necessary it is to put all precautions in place. And I think we have to emphasize that. If in fact they are looking at that money. If we can do something with IT, again, Tracy, thank you for that clarification, because it's true. We may end up with more expenses than we realize, even though we're being gifted some of that technology. But I think I probably feel more so than ever that we have to try and stand our ground and just clarify, continue to clarify and support the needs that we have.
In case people don't know, Paula works at St. Joseph's Living Center, so she's speaking from experience about what kind of things have to be dealt with to be safe.
That's right.
Yeah. Then we have Mary Gallucci and then Katina, the man Owen. Hey, Mary?
Oh, yes. I mean, I did just want to put a few things in the chat about, you know, the tech money also has to be seen in terms of the tech staff and the heavier burdens that have been placed on them in terms of supporting teachers and students as they go into this new environment. And it will probably continue for at least some of the time in the fall, if not 100% of the time. So the technology money is not all, you know, we can't just say what we initially forecast is even accurate. And, you know, I do just want to emphasize once again that sometimes when there's the public comment and people are giving testimony, you know, anecdotes and personal experience are very important, but, you know, the upshot is that, you know, we've got a very carefully prepared budget. It's well researched. And, you know, we can't say that, you know, one person saying, you know, I just can't see my taxes go up next year. That, you know, that it's very hard to, you know, fact check something like that. Nobody wants to pay more money, but if it's for the ultimate good of everyone and the greater safety of the town and the schools, we really have to weigh things very, very carefully and very fairly. And for people to say, there's so many people laid off now, let's lay more people off by cutting this budget makes no sense. So I do hope that that is all being considered. Thank you for letting me comment again.
Thank you, Mary. Then we have Katina.
Yes, I was going to add, I mean, I cannot agree more with the comments about holding our ground and the line. I was going to add that we're not thinking about extra expenses that we're going to have with nurses and healthcare. Now that we have the pediatric multi-symptom inflammatory conditions that are showing up in kids that look like a variety of things that I used to see in school, but they are COVID related, then we might have other children, you know, we might need to have extra hands on board in terms of our nursing staff and all kinds of health related services. So we should be very, very careful in terms of saying that we cannot have any cuts and that this money that we might be getting, minus the Chromebook or Windows, whatever it is, needs to be used for extra expenses we're going to be using. Thank you for letting me talk again.
People are making a bunch of good points here. Mark?
Yeah, I guess we need to get some paper clarification here because we're actually talking about closer to $3 million. The CARE money is 1.4 million. It's a separate grant, which I didn't refer to when I made my comments. Then we have 900,000+ in Alliance, which is new money. And then we have the new money in the IT from the other grant, which was almost about 1.4 that I think that Tracy had alluded to earlier. So we're really talking about the potential of over $3 million. I wouldn't even consider the CARE money at this point. I agree with you. It's not certain. We haven't applied for it. We don't know what the rules are. We don't know when we can spend it. But we have to acknowledge that we know we're going to get at least, at this point, we now have discovered 1.4 million or 1.2 million of money that we didn't have when we proposed this budget. We're foolish if we don't put it on the table or at least acknowledge that it's there for them to deal with.
So Mark, are you making the case that the 912,000 that we're going to get in state alliance funds is newfound money that could be targeted toward our budget as it exists now, you know, absent all the COVID expenses, which you're saying?
It's possible. There's different ways of treating that money. We could also look at it is that it's money that the Board of Finance can consider. Right now, they're considering that all of our increase is going to come out of local tax dollars because we didn't get any more state money. Well, now we're getting close to $1 million of extra state money. So at least we can tell the Board of Finance it's not going to all come from local tax dollars. That will help maybe reduce their panic over the tax increase, because that was part of what they're looking at is was it $500 per house average cost. But they're looking at the fact that all of our increase was going to come out of local tax dollars. Now at least $1 million of it might not come out of local tax dollars. They don't have to cut the budget, but now they can realize that they're not going to have as big a tax burden on the people.
Now vote on Pam's position.
So is there anybody else who wants to make a comment? And then I'm going to hand it back over to Dr. Youngberg. There's stuff in the chat box too, where there's a lot of going back and forth, agreeing with comments that have been made about technology. I think one of the themes that we're hearing here is that the yet to be determined needs from COVID-19 and returning to school have to be protected in the monies that we're getting through the CARES Act and the technology resources that we're getting. We should not be acknowledging that any of that money could be used for other things. That, you know, our responsibility to the students and to the teachers and the other staff that work with the students is to have them as well connected as possible. You know, it's going to make it easier than having some children who can't even be connected via technology. So, Dr. Youngberg, is there anything you want to say about any of this as we wrap it up?
I was just wondering if this needed to go to a meeting of the Finance and Audit Committee, although I know time is of the essence since the Board of Finance is looking to make their decision as early as next Wednesday, but it sounds like there's more to flush out for sure.
Well, the Finance and Audit Committee is meeting on Tuesday.
We were originally going to meet on Tuesday, then we switched to Wednesday. I could push
Yeah.
it back to Tuesday so we can have at least a 24-hour notice. That makes sense. I would agree with Tracy on that point.
If that's okay with you and Rita, Dr. Youngberg, if that's okay, I think maybe it would give the Finance and Audit Committee a chance to absorb what was said in this conversation and have one more conversation before we say anything to the Board of Finance next week. I mean, we're not used to the Board of Finance wanting the superintendent and the chair to be like participating in their discussions the way they've been asking us to, which is a nice thing.
A very nice thing.
But we need to, you know, Dr. Youngberg really needs to have her feet under her when she goes to have that discussion with them next week. Good point that Tracy Lambert is making about school-based health centers. Yes, they are funded from a different source. Thank you for clarifying, Tracy Lambert. So we'll move the meeting to Tuesday night.
Okay.
Great.
Okay, thanks. What time will it be, Mark, the Finance and Audit Committee on Tuesday night?
It's 6 o'clock. Oh, wait, Rita's got a question.
Yeah, I got it. I don't have the reports yet done that are typically emailed to you on Monday. So, I mean, I should have them done this week. I just want to make sure I think we have to get them to you before 48
Yeah,
hours.
well, I think if you can get them to us on Monday, that's fair enough.
Okay.
That's the 48-hour rule she's
Yeah,
worried
I just
about,
want to
right?
make sure you're okay.
Sorry, Rita, I wasn't thinking about that when I made the suggestion.
I just yeah, it's okay.
Okay, anything else on this? And then the point was made by Dr. Katina Cabano, and that, you know, the school nurses in the schools that don't have school-based health centers are in our budget. So, yep, we're going to pay attention to all of this. I look forward to having more discussion next Tuesday. Anybody on the board is welcome to join us, and any member of the public. Okay. And I just want to say, since we have Kristen DeGray on the line today, that speaking of the budget hearing last night, your testimony was like amazing. Thank you very much. Other people gave amazing testimony too, but since you're here, I can tell you that in person. And Joanne Haddad gave good testimony as always too. Okay, now we're on to the last item under the superintendent's reports.
So that is my desire to let the Board of Ed know that although I can't appoint a Mr. Patrick Risley as the assistant principal of Windham High School until after the Board of Education makes their decision or takes action on the Windham High School position, I just want the Board of Ed to know that that is my intention. Mr. Risley, who I can see right in the center of my Hollywood squares, there he is, thumbs up, is actually a 1983 graduate of Windham High School, and he's currently in his 28th year of employment here. He has been a physical education teacher for us, an athletic director, and now an administrator. His current title is interim assistant principal. Just like he earned the National High School Coaches Association Award for Wrestling in 2019, I believe Mr. Risley has earned the right to remove the word interim from his title. He is part of an extremely important part of the powerful three-pronged leadership team led by Ms. Kavanaugh, and I know Dr. Morales, there you are, the bottom of my screen. And the three of them have been doing an amazing job at Windham High School, guiding the amazingly talented staff at Windham High School to new heights, and new things are happening there. Mr. Risley is very open to growing and developing. He has a natural connection with the students and staff in the building. And anytime you talk to him, what shines through is his deep love of Windham, everything Windham. So we want Mr. Risley to stick around on the leadership team. I see big smiles on Pam's face right now. So he's a key player in my vision for the high school moving forward. So once the action is taken on the high school principal position, that is my intention. So I just wanted the Board of Education to be aware that that's what I'm hoping will happen for us.
Any comments or questions from the board?
Oh, I see Mark's hand.
Mark?
Yeah, well, I can say from a long experience with Pat that I would certainly recommend him for that position. Considering most of his clothes all say Windham on them, I know of his long look for Windham.
You can't go wrong, right? Everything he owns says Windham.
Everything he owns says Windham. There's a W there somewhere.
Oh, I love that. There's a W there somewhere. That's a great, that could be a great little catchphrase. I love it.
As well as the tattoo on my back.
Do you really have a tattoo on your back? This is new information, Mr. Risley.
The Windham logo is on my back.
Oh, my word.
I think that seals the deal right there.
I see some laughing and smiling. That's good, even in the chat box. So, anybody else have any comments or questions? Well, thank you, Dr. Youngberg. That was a lot of recognitions and awards and other things to report on. Certainly, you and your team have been busy. Next thing on the agenda are the committee reports, and I'll hand it over to Mark Doyle to give Finance and Audit Committee update if there is any. Or
No, we didn't. Obviously, we didn't meet this week, and we're going to meet Tuesday at 6, as long as all the information is available.
Tuesday, May 19th at 6 p.m.
Yep.
And you have an agenda drafted up. I've seen it, so it'll just be the same agenda, except for maybe adding
I'll have to update it for the discussion of the new money.
for this discussion. Great. Any questions? Okay, I'm going to hand it over to Tracy Lambert, School Planning and Design, and thank you so much at the Board of Finance hearing last night for bringing that issue up around the school planning and design as it relates to consolidation discussions and things of that
Board of
sort.
Finance first brought it up this year about, is there a way to actualize savings by closing a building or doing something different with our configuration? So I just wanted to let them know that while it's something that we have tried to discuss and we've tried to move forward on, when we have a 0% increase, a teacher comes well before making this kind of a decision, hiring a consultant or something like that. And in Dr. Youngberg's email today, I believe there were some numbers of prices of what we were offered last year for consultants. So that's something we just need to be mindful of going forward. I've told Tracy that, I'd love to be able to have a consultant and update our facilities master plan that was done in 2012 or 13 and, start making plans to move our district forward building wise and maybe consolidate or do something different. We've eliminated Kramer, that makes for different spaces and stuff like that. It gives us less swing space. So we have to be mindful of how we do this. And I don't think it's something that any of us on staff or board members is, capable of doing on their own for research and things like that, and looking at numbers and how our population is going to grow or decrease over the next few years. So it's something that we just need to be mindful of. If we want to move forward, we have to start investing some money in these kind of moves and decisions that the board's going to have to make. And it wouldn't be made at a committee level, but the committee would present the information to the rest of the board, and then the board would make the decision on what to do. And I don't want to conjecture about what might happen in the future because this isn't the appropriate time yet without having looked at the numbers. But if they want to, keep cutting our budget, and that's their purview and that's their right, and it's their responsibility to the taxpayers, they just have to be aware of what else goes besides teachers and staff. And I've said absolutely that I will keep a teacher over doing this kind of a study, any day of the week and twice on Sundays. So that's just where I'm coming from on the budget thing. But we did have a school planning and design committee meeting last week. It was myself, it was Tracy and Dawn, myself, Dr. Youngberg, and Don Tamakos, who is our facilities director. We did some project updates. The roof replacement at North Windham School. The town needs to get a committee formed, and there was a task, handed out on that. So I think Dr. Youngberg said that when she gets the opportunity, she's going to talk to Mr. Rivers about that. we have to rebid, well, we did rebid the project for the middle school bathrooms, and it came in around $150,000, which is $31,000 short of what it was budgeted 5 years ago. But of course, capital improvement doesn't account for escalation. And that project was put off to finance another project or get something else done. And, you know, it still needs to be done because those bathrooms are falling apart. People say it's a fairly new school, but it's 26 years old, Ms. Haddad? Moved there in you're muted, honey.
January 97.
January 97. Okay, so 23, almost 24 years old now. So those are things that we have to start thinking about. The North Windham portable that needed asbestos abatement and other things has come in around $70,000, and $40,000 was budgeted several years ago, which is, you know, the same situation. No contingencies were made for putting those things off, so that's significantly higher than the previous budget. And of course, Dawn, if I make a mistake, feel free to jump in and correct me because I'm just doing this off my notes. And then there is Windham Center principal's office floor replacement, which should be able to work within our budget. There are other concerns. The middle school library needs some updates and some fixing, possibly some repurposing, and those are things that are coming down the line, but those aren't imminent right now. The oil tanks for North Windham and Windham Center are more timely because we are well over our extensions. And from what I've heard, we haven't been able to hear back from the DEEP on another extension. When the change in facilities director happened, things got put on the back burner, and this one got put on the back burner, and now we really need to act on it because Mr. Purple from DEEP or from the state, Dawn?
Mr. Purple's from the state. I don't know if she.
Thank you. Thank you. He has red tagged this project, so that means that we need to get moving on it quickly. For both the roof and the oil tank projects, there are 4. The town needs to form a building committee in order to get these things moving. Dawn has already put out RFPs and RFQs as is appropriate, but we can't go any farther until a town building committee is formed.
Wow. We need to get them moving on that then.
Well, we started last fall asking them to get moving because Dawn was hoping to get new roofs this summer, which I told her was a farce anyways. Even if the building committee had been formed, you know, in September, we still probably wouldn't have been ready because there's a lot of state hoops to jump through. But
Right.
as we found out with the wells at North Windham and Windham Center and the roof at the middle school and the roof at the high school, these things take time. So, but now it's been red tagged, and we want to make sure that we don't get fined or disparaged in any other way that would make this project more difficult.
Okay. Anybody have is there anything else you want to report to us before I open it up to questions?
No, I think that's it for right now.
Anybody have any questions for Tracy Lambert, Mark?
You have to unmute.
Yeah, I'm just what have we done to formally request the town form these committees? Have we sent them a letter? Have you contacted Lynn? Have you contacted the chairman or the? I mean, at some point we have to get something in the pipeline to formally.
Right. I made the requests last, like, I want to say December or November.
Okay.
And I was told at the time that because of the election and the reforming of committees and, you know, or you know, the leadership changes, whatever, that they would get to it after the new year. But obviously they didn't. So I would certainly be happy to put something in writing again if Tracy Lambert would just jot down some specifics about what we need to remind me again. We could send something together, Tracy and I.
Dr. Youngberg had said that she, you know, regularly meets with Mr. Rivers, the town manager, and that she was going to bring it up again. But I think that putting something in writing formally, you know, it started with some casual emails like, hey, I need to talk to you about some projects and forming a building committee, whether they decide to form a standing one that just does whatever projects come up, or they want to form individual ones. That's up to the town council. That's at their purview. But the state won't let us go forward and file ADO 49s, and neither will DEEP until we have a building committee set. So
I think we need to put in writing sort of the urgency of this and that they've been red tagged and all this. Does that make sense to you, Tracy Youngberg?
Yes, I actually emailed him. I haven't gotten a response back, but I can certainly
Is
call
Dawn?
and say we need to move this along.
Yeah, Dawn Tomakos has her hand up. Go ahead.
Your microphone's off, Dawn.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So from my understanding, there was a resolution for building committee, and the building committee was for both the oil tanks and the re-roofing. With that, there were 3 members. However, there's only 2 members because I don't know what happened to the third one.
Oh.
So we need the third member. So right now we have Tara Kramer from North Windham, and we have Pennywell. I don't know if I'm saying his
Chuck
name.
Pennywell from the Board of Finance, or
Correct. And
or
then,
there's another
yeah, and then
Pennywell too, his
the
son.
person I believe was supposed to be Matt from the town, but for whatever reason, I don't know. I didn't hear the full story, but he's not on the committee, so we need that third person. So they did do some, but it's still incomplete, so I can't move forward with only 2 members.
Okay, so we need to put something in writing, and we can, if you would help Tracy Lambert and Tracy Youngberg with those details that you know of, Dawn, that would be helpful, so we can include that in our communication. We know that you started, have 2 people appointed, need the third, we need to get this going. Okay?
Okay.
That makes sense? Yeah.
If it came down to it, I'd be the third member on either or both of those committees. I've been on several before. I don't want to overextend myself as a board member and, insert myself where it's inappropriate. So if that's something that needs to be suggested just to get these things moving this summer, I'd be happy to take that on.
Everybody okay on the board with that? The best person for the job would be Tracy Lambert.
The town
So-
council will have to appoint them. That will have
Okay,
to appoint
right.
me. If I need to
Right.
fill out another application, that's not a problem. And I don't have a problem doing it. It's just, I don't want anybody to think I'm trying to do everything because I can't do everything.
Well, I have a feeling there is a lack of, it's hard to focus in these times of COVID too. So things that were on track have fallen off track, and I think we should just kick it back into gear. So we'll work together, Tracy Lambert, Tracy Youngberg, and Dawn Tomakos, and get something in writing together, and we can make sure we share it not just with Jim Rivers, but also with the president of the town council, and offer you, Tracy, as somebody to fill in that third seat.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep.
Anything else on school planning and design, which is always exciting? There's always something going on.
Every time I ask Dawn if we need a meeting, she says yes. I get a little panicked in my stomach there, wondering what's coming down the road next. Nothing else for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Policy committee, Ilda hasn't joined us, has she?
I'm right here.
Oh, where are you? I didn't see you.
Hello.
Oh, there you are. Okay.
I'm
You
on
were-
the Hollywood Square here somewhere.
Oh yeah, I see. There you are. So Ilda, is there anything to report on?
Unfortunately, no, we have not planned a meeting yet, but we will soon.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. Thank you,
Okay.
Deanne.
So will you let us know when you have one scheduled? Okay.
Yes, I will. I'll work on it ASAP.
Okay. Any questions? Comments? So on executive committee, we haven't had a meeting. We've been doing everything that we need to do in committees that exist already or at the board level. So I've seen no sense in having a meeting just to have a meeting. So I'm assuming sometime in the between now and June, we're gonna have to have a meeting about some matters. But so stay tuned, I'll let you know. Any questions? Okay, so we're on to discussion item, and we have the transportation contract issue to deal with. For those of you who have been following this, we've been in some protracted learning and negotiating around what to do with our bus contract payment, given COVID-19. And the state had some opinions about all that and whatever. So I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Youngberg to get us kicked off. We decided that it would be preferable to have the board weigh in on this tonight under action items, so that Dr. Youngberg would have a formal vote of support from the board on the action that we choose to take. So go ahead.
Thanks, Lynn. So I provided for the board today the most up-to-date information. It has changed a few times, at least on the M&J side. So I did speak directly to John Hipsher from M&J on the phone as well as through email, and the figures that I provided are sort of his final offer. The one thing that we did go back and forth on was the midday and late runs. He's asked for a portion of the money to be paid to pay for those, but he also made it clear to me in our negotiations that that's not a deal breaker. He wants the relationship to continue to exist between M&J and Windham Public Schools. So if that has to happen, it has to happen. My concern to him was that he didn't bring this up until now, and we've been talking about this since the end of March. So it didn't make a lot of sense to me that it was suddenly tacked on. But I feel like both of the figures, both the bus companies have provided us with as much information as I think we're going to get at this point. I gave the board the percentages that these payments represent against the money that we've set aside to pay for the transportation contracts. There is a savings here because there's things we're not paying for, because obviously the service is not technically being provided to us. But this is the state's way of trying to make sure that the bus drivers that have been laid off or that have had their hours cut and remained employed are going to be able to be made whole and not penalized by COVID-19. So my recommendation is that we make the payments, but I'm willing to listen to what the board has to say about it. At this point, I think we have as much information as we're going to get. I'm not sure we're going to move a whole lot from this particular place. And if it goes any further, I know we're going to have to involve the attorneys, which is going to be a costly thing by itself. So I feel like we're in that funny position right now. What we might save if we negotiate, we're going to pay in legal fees.
Okay, so can you just sort of back up a little bit, Tracy at Youngberg, and just sort of say, the question has been, do we pay the full contract or some negotiated portion of it, and that the lawyers have been involved and the state has weighed in on, the Attorney General has weighed in on this. I think that's important for people to understand. And then I know Mary Gallucci has a question. Go ahead.
Sure. So the amounts of money that I provided for you, the breakdowns of what they're asking to be paid, neither of them is 100% payment. We're not paying for things like fuel because it's not being utilized. We're not paying for any of the athletic trips that would have been taking place in the spring. We're not paying for any field trips. We're strictly paying, we're paying for your basic maintenance that they would have to provide to keep the vehicles running. So when we do go back to school, they're still, maintained at the safety standards that need to be there. But both M&J and EastCon have provided us with a portion of what it takes to run their companies during the school closures. So Lynn is absolutely correct that this all came about through an executive order from the governor, and Shipman and Goodman was involved in processing through what that executive order stated. And there was initially no movement on M&J's part. So the Attorney General was brought in to try to make this work because M&J laid off all of their bus drivers and then was asking initially to be paid their full contracted amount. And that's not what's happened here. There's a 90% portion of our payment for 22 days, and it's all broken out in the email that I sent. I sent the email today because it was different. Today's figures are different than what they were Friday because we've had another conversation. And there's also a 55% figure for 39 days of service. And then as well as the midday and late runs. So it's a portion of what we were supposed to pay them. In fact, for the M&J, for what's been set aside to pay them this year, it's a 55% of that money would make this payment. And for EastCon, it's 59%.
Okay, I just want people to have a little more context on that. Thank you. So I see in the chat box that Mary had a question or a comment.
Yes, thanks so much for that explanation because I find this a thorny issue. My primary concern was that, the company wanted to be paid and yet they had laid off all their drivers. So I just want to make sure that, the payment will be to ensure that the drivers at least get something, because that seems to be the spirit of the executive order. And the second part of this is that as long as we're talking about preserving our relationship, M&J and Windham Public Schools, perhaps we do need to talk to them a little bit about how the relationship, is going forward, because we have had many complaints from parents and even from staff that there's not accountability on the part of the bus company when there are late runs or when things go wrong. There's actually rudeness, which other districts may not experience. So I would like us to have a very positive relationship going forward, especially protecting the bus drivers, who do a critical service to the district. So, obviously we need to honor the contract, but not if they're laying off their drivers. So thank you, and I think I got clarification on that.
I completely agree with you, Dr. Gallucci, and actually John and I have already had several conversations since I took over in November, because we have to definitely work on the customer service platform for sure. We don't necessarily see eye to eye, but I think we're getting closer in our conversations. So I am working on that. I know exactly what you're saying. I have similar feedback, or I've had similar experiences in terms of improving the relationship.
Well, another thing that has happened, and I see that Ilda has her hand up and Katina had something in the chat box, so I'll call on you both in a second. Another thing that has come up is that in all of this, the superintendent, the different school districts who deal with M&J bus have been communicating with each other. So that sort of put M&J in a slightly different position as far as negotiating, because they can't be playing people off one another the way that they may have been doing before. So that's good. So Ilda had her hand up first, and then Katina.
So my question is, since they are probably receiving, I would hope by now, receiving unemployment or soon to be, who pays for their unemployment fundings? Does that come from what we pay the bus company?
So that's part of the argument, Ilda, was that he laid off the workers and then was asking for full payment initially. And why would he do that? Because he's not paying them. Unemployment is, although you pay a portion of unemployment in some cases. The unemployment's not coming from us. I don't know if it's coming directly from them. I think it depends on a whole lot of things, but I'm not 100% sure. I know we're not paying it. His goal is to bring back the drivers when they receive a payment from the districts. His goal is to bring back that district's drivers. Right now, he may be running into some trouble with that, because right now the drivers are actually making more money on unemployment than they were as drivers. And I know that's temporary because it's the COVID-19 additional funds, but his goal is to get them all back to work when a payment is made to them.
Okay, but back to work for doing what? Because we're not going back to school anytime soon.
Right.
So where are they working? Where are they working for us at?
Right now, they're not working
for us. They work for the bus company.
Work for the bus company.
Exactly, but the bus company that we are paying for is not providing any type of transportation during.
Yeah, but the governor's executive order said that we needed to pay.
Right.
It's a choice. We have to pay something.
Something.
It's not up to us to determine that. That's not up for us to determine.
What, the percentage of what we pay them is not up to us?
No, that's what they've been negotiating, but we have no control over, over the executive order that came
No, I
down from the
understand that.
state. And also, the employer of these people is M&J Bus. They are responsible for dealing with the, with unemployment.
I
Okay?
understand that.
Every employer pays a certain amount of money into the state. And then if people start making claims against them, they can have their claims assessed at a different rate if there's an, it's, you know, it's a formulaic response, but it's not our responsibility to deal with their unemployment.
I have a question.
Okay.
So the next question is from Katina and then Jaime. Go ahead, Katina.
Basically the same theme that we're talking about. So if they laid off their employees and we're paying for the work of the employees that they were supposed to be working and are not, but the workers are receiving unemployment, it seems to me that that is a contradiction, because we are paying all our employees because that's the right thing to do, and that's the right thing to do. So none of them are claiming unemployment. So I'm just saying that if this, you get what I'm saying. It's just a terrible bind if they are getting unemployment, but we're paying the company for their workers.
Well, the perversity in the whole thing right now is that because of COVID, people who are getting unemployment are getting additional money from the feds to make their paychecks bigger. And that sort of throws a whole sort of wrench into the whole thing, because normally if people were going to, you know, come off of unemployment and get paid by their employer because their employer is getting money from its contracts to make good on those payments, it's difficult for a person to say, oh, I'm going to give up that extra $600 per pay period or whatever that I'm getting. It's a very messy situation, and what we need to do is give Dr. Youngberg guidance on whether or not to move forward with the deal that's on the table, whether or not we like the way this is all playing itself out. Jaime, you had your hand up next.
Yeah, okay, so I have this is a double tier question. Dr. Youngberg, you mentioned that they are paying the employees.
So
you know, they're paying the employees. That's what we're paying them, right? But you're saying that some of the employees are not coming back to work because of unemployment.
I'm actually not sure whether the employees are coming back to work. What I was trying to say is some of them are actually making more money on unemployment than they did as bus drivers. I don't know. I'm hoping they come back to work because when we have kids to transport, we're going to need those.
Are they working now? Because
so EastCon has
I'm a little confused of the whole
okay, so EastCon Bus Company has kept all of their drivers on, but they've cut back their hours. So the drivers have the right to do, I guess, a portion of unemployment and a portion of paycheck. So they did not lay anyone off. They just cut back hours. M&J did indeed lay off all of their bus drivers from the very first day of the school closures. The bus drivers were laid off. And then they also, at that very beginning, had asked to be paid 100% of their contract after they laid off all of their drivers, which is why the Attorney General and the attorneys were involved, because obviously that's not fair.
Okay, so we're negotiating that part.
Right. That is why the amount of money they're requesting now is much less than 100%. And it's based on what the executive order suggests that school systems are required to pay. We have some room to negotiate, but we are required to keep up to make the payment on our bus contracts. It's what the governor has told us needs to happen. So I guess I just need the directive from the board to either make the payment as it's currently being offered, to go back to the negotiation table, which I could try to do on my own, or to seek legal counsel.
Well, what did our lawyers say?
They gave me all of the necessary commentary that I needed to, the questions I needed to ask of the bus companies in order for them to provide the information. EastCon was wonderful about it. They gave us the financial documents and all the information right away. M&J still hasn't really given us financial documents backing up their request, but they have given us a request, which in the beginning didn't happen. He just said he wanted a full 100%. So I feel like we've made gains, even though it's still not where I'd like it to be. It's much better than it was a few weeks ago.
We, if they're not hiring their, they laid off their employees, then I think we're off the hook too. But anyway.
Do you think what, Jaime? And
They laid off all their employees, M&J. Why should we pay them, to keep that was the kind of the spirit of the,
Right.
Well, but the governor's executive order is telling us we have to pay them.
What he's saying is once he receives a check from Windham, he's going to he's going to hire back all of the Windham drivers. I don't know how that's going to work out because I don't know how the unemployment piece works, but that's what they're saying. That's what the intent of getting the bill paid is for.
So that's my question. What did the lawyers say about it? What did our lawyers say?
That we have to make the payment. It's just a question of how much we're making.
Right, and so we're pleased that we went from making 100%, them us being asked to make 100% of the payment to negotiate it down to the percentages that are in the document that Dr. Youngberg sent to you this afternoon. Who else had their hand up, Mark?
Is this going to be an action item, Lynn? Do we need a motion to put this?
Yeah, yeah, it's on the agenda as an action item.
I didn't see it on as an action item. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
so this is just discussion. So
okay, I would certainly agree with your position that the governor and the attorney general and the lawyers put us in this position that we have to pay them something. We negotiated it down. It may gall us that we're paying for bus drivers that aren't working, but that's neither here nor there. They could use this money as pure profit if they wanted to. It really isn't our concern what they do with the money. I think Tracy has negotiated with our attorneys a good proposal, and we have to live up to the executive order and pay the bill and just swallow it, I guess. Whether they get paid unemployment or don't get paid unemployment or come back or don't come back, that's not really up to us.
It's a really weird thing, and that's why I didn't want Dr. Youngberg to take action without us having had a chance to discuss it. Any further discussion on this? We're not going to take action now until the action set. Tracy Lambert and then Jaime.
Just a quick question. We, as the town of Windham, we have bought into the fuel with the town to pay for the fuel for the buses. The bus company doesn't pay for its own fuel. Can we find out if we've gotten, I think, and we'd have to ask Rita or Chris Johnson or something like that. I think we prepay for it. So if it's already paid out, that could be added to next year's fuel consumption. But if we haven't, are we saving money on that?
I actually asked a question about fuel just this morning when I was trying to figure all these things out. And Rita, can you just answer that by any chance?
Yeah,
I'm sorry to put you on the spot, Rita.
There was a plan to do that, Tracy, to prepay, but that never happened. So we were paying M&J a monthly amount of about $15,000 for fuel. And we're not going to be paying for fuel. It's not in it's not with the settlement. So that will be money we're saving.
So we're saving April, May, and June's fuel. So that's what, $45,000?
Give or take.
I'm not saying that, it's free money. We've had to buy Chromebooks and, lots of other stuff with this COVID thing. But I'm just saying that's something we're saving on top of the 45% or 41%.
Yeah, and
that we negotiated. I think the contract, I was the one that told Dr. Youngberg when a friend of mine who is a bus driver let me know that he had been laid off. So I was the one that told Dr. Youngberg when she was negotiating that, the bus drivers aren't getting paid anymore. So that's a concern for me. We have to take care of people first. So a smaller portion of our contract to me is beneficial, but in the future, they need to be ready to work with us a little more, be on time for things, do what they say they're going to do, and, possibly do some give backs if it comes to that.
Point well taken. I think that's sort of the same thing that Mary Galucci was saying also. So good point, Tracy, about the fuel. Thanks. Jaime, you had a question or comment?
Yeah, no, I have a comment. I mean, we may not have anything to do with the way they spend their money. It's fine. They can do anything they want. But we certainly have something to say about how much money we're going to give them. Because what I'm not understanding is, because if we went to lawyers say you have to pay, but they did not set any rate at which we pay 50, 40, 30%, whatever. So we have a lot to say how much money we're gonna pay them. It's not like, and then they can do anything they want to with the money that we pay them.
So what was initially supposed to happen, and it hasn't happened with M&J, is there are parameters around what we're supposed to pay. So we were supposed to pay a basic amount of maintenance that the buses were required to, to keep the buses maintained. We were supposed to be paying for what it would cost them to pay their salaries and their benefits. And there's a few other items in the executive order that tells what you're supposed to pay. So that's why they were supposed to provide financials to tell us how much that was. They have not done that. So I completely agree with you, Dr. Gomez. They haven't told us exactly what they're spending for those things.
And we force them to do that.
Well, we could. I think it's going to take an attorney because I've tried multiple times now, but we absolutely could do that if that's what the board wants to do.
Right, so when we take action, we could either, which is the next thing on the agenda, we could approve the deal that's on the table now. We could say, go back and negotiate some more. We could say, spend money on attorneys and negotiate some more. But remember that part, spending money on attorneys costs us money. So, any other discussion? I'm glad we brought this to the board. If everybody looks at, Katina pointed out in the chat box that if everybody reads through the email that Dr. Youngberg sent earlier this afternoon, it has a pretty good explanation of this. If you pull it up and look at it. Mary agreed that that was a good explanation. Thank you, Dr. Youngberg. If there's no further discussion, I think we'll move on. Okay. So we have two action items this evening. One is following up on the bus contract discussion, payment discussion, and the other is exciting, positive news that Tracy Youngberg is bringing forward to us, and I see Pam Kavanaugh is here with us this evening. So go ahead, Tracy.
So I think the board's pretty clear on this. One of the really important pieces behind my leadership philosophy is the idea of establishing and maintaining effective teams. I'm a real firm believer in the whole idea of synergy. I think that we're much better together, far greater together than we are if you separate us out and take a look at us from an individual standpoint. I have been lucky enough to watch how a cohesive and compassionate student-centered leadership team at Windham High School is really having a profound impact on the entire learning community. And I don't think most of us realize just how the psychological benefits to students and staff when they see a leadership team that's completely in step and on the same page. It really is a powerful tool in steering the ship toward those school and district goals. Mrs. Pam Kavanaugh, is the leader of this highly effective team, the trio, and they're all on the call, Dr. Morales and Mr. Risley. And together, they have really made a significant difference at Windham High School. Since January of 2019, Ms. Kavanaugh has effectively filled the role of Windham High School principal and has demonstrated the ability to navigate the leadership role with all of her constituents, that's students, staff, parents, community members, state partners, and personnel from higher education partnerships that we have. In addition to my own professional observations of the notable improvements within the hallways and classrooms of Windham High School, obviously before COVID-19 that is, I have also gathered data on Mrs. Kavanaugh's leadership from the high school staff and from their school governance council. In addition, we're lucky enough to be one of the Commissioners Network schools, so we actually get we get monthly feedback about the high school, and the observation that the feedback that we're provided after an observation of practice only validates what I've already observed myself. Windham High School is on the rise, and Mrs. Kavanaugh is leading the charge. She has earned the right to be called the principal of Windham High School and to have the acting word removed from her title. As I noted in the board packet, she is open to feedback, highly reflective, and deeply interested in our students' success. She is effectively balancing the management and leadership required to guide the amazingly talented staff at Windham High School and the students at Windham High School. I feel like we're in a position when we finally get back to traditional school to seeing that school really take off. And I'm going to read the first sentence of an email I received from a senior. Katina, I think you know the senior. She got a thumbs up. I want to say her name correctly. Is it Ayanzelise?
Ayanzelise.
Ayanzelise, okay. She's
Dr. Youngberg, she did that all on her own.
Okay, so she sent me an email, and I'm just going to read the first sentence because I think it sort of sums the whole thing up. She says, "Hello, Dr. Youngberg. I am a 2020 senior, and I just wanted to say I think Mrs. Kavanaugh should be the principal for multiple reasons. Beginning with, she is a wonderful woman, and I truly have no clue how I would have made it to senior year without her." So to me, that just sums it up. And so what I'd like I'd like to recommend to the Board of Education that Mrs. Pamela Kavanaugh be appointed as the principal of Windham High School.
Thank you, Dr. Tracy Youngberg. And at this time, before we take any action, I would like to, what we would have done if we were all in person together, which is ask Pam Kavanaugh to come up to the mic, and if there's anything that she wants to say or any questions that people want to ask, we can deal with that now. Does that make sense? Okay. Pam Kavanaugh, you're on. Is there anything you'd like to say to us?
I'd like to say that I've been very honored to serve as acting principal since January of 2018. I think that collaborating with Dr. Morales and Mr. Risley and our faculty, staff, and especially our students has really begun to provide a very vibrant culture at the high school and moving things forward. Since COVID-19 began, I think our whole school has become stronger as a family, and the staff and the teachers are really collaborating to think outside of the box and to come up with innovative ways to meet the needs of each student now, socially, emotionally, and academically. And we certainly want to bring all of those skills that we're learning now into when we get back to normal, hopefully next year. So thank you. I'm very grateful to have been able to serve thus far.
Thank you. I realize I forgot to ask for a motion before we proceed any further. Would somebody like to make a motion? Ilda?
Yes, I would like to make a high motion and also add that it's been a pleasure working with Ms. Kavanaugh this senior year in trying to get as much possible as we can with keeping with the social distance for our seniors. So I do appreciate that. My hat, well, if I had a hat on, I would take it off to you. You've done an amazing job, along with Dr. Morales and Coach Risley, which is soon going to be Assistant Principal Risley. So I would like to make a motion that we accept Miss Pamela Kavanaugh as our principal of Windham High School.
Okay, motion's been made by Ilda. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mark. Okay, now we can continue discussion. Is there any discussion of the motion that's on the floor?
This is Mary.
Okay, go ahead, Mary.
Yeah, I would like to speak in favor of the motion and also say I've been very impressed by the teamwork of Ms. Kavanaugh, Mr. Risley, and Dr. Morales. So I won't go into detail, but I would definitely say I'm very much in favor of this.
Is there anybody else who would like to speak? Katina.
Yes, I would like to support the motion and triple second the motion. Mrs. Kavanagh also has been very significant with Nathan Perez Espitia, my godson and grandson who lost his mother. And for that, I will always be grateful to you.
Anybody else?
I would like to say, this is Paula. I would like to say that I know for over the years, we've had a lot of dysfunction, a lot of changes, I should say, at the high school. And it's wonderful to hear that there is a wonderful working team. So even though I haven't been as involved as I had been years ago, I'm just so happy to hear this and definitely in support.
Thank you. Anything else anybody wants to say? Okay, so not hearing any further comments, what we're going to do is turn it to Brendan to do a roll call vote.
All right. Dr. Galucci?
Aye.
Dr. Gomez? Dr. Gomez? He's still here?
Yes, he is. He has to unmute.
Bueller?
Aye.
Bueller?
Hi.
I'm here.
Dr. Kavan Owen?
Aye.
Has Miss Donick joined us?
I haven't
Nope.
seen her.
I haven't seen her either. Mr. Doyle? Mark?
Aye.
Miss Lambert?
Aye.
Miss Ray? Hilda, are you on mute?
Hi, I was mute.
Miss Haney?
Aye.
And Miss Hyde?
Aye. So with that, we have unanimous vote of the 9 members present, and let's give a hand.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Well deserved.
Well deserved, right.
Wonderful.
So we look forward to the dynamic team. I know that now that this decision has been made, we have now Dr. Youngberg is free to make the appointment for assistant principal after this evening.
Absolutely. Mr. Pat Risley is the assistant principal, no interim in front of his name of Windham High School.
Congratulations to everybody. And it's nice that you're with us, Mr. Morales. And we're looking forward to the 3 of you continuing your good work. Thank you.
Thank you.
No, I want to thank you guys. Appreciate it. I like the support.
Great. Okay. So the next item and last item on the agenda is possible action regarding the transportation contracts. And we had discussion in the previous section of the agenda, and Tracy Lambert has her hand up. Go right ahead.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the outlined payments by Dr. Youngberg with the understanding that we get the documentation necessary to make that payment. So no payment is made until the documentation requested by Dr. Youngberg is provided to us by M&J.
I second that.
Motion made by Tracy Lambert, seconded by Ilda. And I know that's something that people have been asking for in the chat box too. So, any
Yes, Con gave us
right?
a breakdown.
Con gave it right. So, any further discussion?
Wait, I have a question.
Yes, go right ahead.
We have High Roads and a few other schools that contract with us. Do we have any obligation to pay their transportation costs?
That's a really good question. I haven't been doing any kind of discussions with them, so that's really interesting.
I'm not trying to undermine you. It just popped into my head.
it's a great question. I'm going to have to follow up because it's not on my list of things to tackle. So let me take a look at that.
If I had it before tonight, I would have given it to you even this morning, Tracy, but I didn't even think
it's fine.
Just now, I know there are other transportation contracts with other organizations that I just want to make sure we're not required to
Absolutely. Rita or Miguel, would you have any other information about that? Or do we need to just look
I
into?
know when I did the analysis on the transportation, there wasn't other contracts. They're very small. I think there's one with the public schools that I gave you, Tracy, but besides EastCon and M&J, there was only 2 small companies that we can look into.
Okay, we'll check it out though. Miguel, do you have any other information?
No, that was a same information.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. So any further discussion on the motion that's on the floor? Seeing none, I'll hand it over to Brendan to do a roll call vote.
Yes, can you repeat the motion as stated, please?
Oh, Tracy, would you, or would you repeat the motion that you made? Katina wants to hear it one more time.
I made a motion to approve the payments as outlined in the email by Dr. Youngberg. I believe they were 55 and 59% between M&J and EastCon respectively, pending the receiving of the paperwork and the documentation that she had requested of both EastCon and M&J. Is that clear enough? Okay.
Okay.
And Ilda, is that what you seconded?
Second it, yep.
Okay. Brendan's going to do roll call.
All right, Dr. Galucci,
Aye.
Dr. Gomez,
I'm abstaining.
Dr. Caban-Owen,
Aye.
Dominic is not here. Mr. Doyle,
Aye.
Miss Lambert,
Aye.
Miss Ray,
Aye.
Miss Haney,
Aye.
Miss Ide.
Aye. Motion carries. So you have your direction.
Thank you very much.
And I'm very glad we added in that point about getting the documentation, because it's ridiculous that they haven't provided it. So there's nothing else on the agenda for this evening. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second, Tracy
Motion
Lambert.
made by Mark Doyle, seconded by Tracy Lambert. Meeting is adjourned.